Maybe the sun gave me the power, for I could swim Loch Lomond and be home in half an hour. Maybe the air gave me the drive, for I'm all aglow and alive. What a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being in love. There's a smile on my face for the whole human race. Why, it's almost like being in love. All the music of life seems to be like a bell that is ringing for me. And from the way that I feel when that bell starts to peal, I would swear I was falling. I could swear I was falling. It's almost like being in love. It was. There we go. I'm an idiot. Hi, good afternoon. Someone's going to have to tell me if I've got this right, because what you should have heard then is music. I don't know if you did. So, hooray for me. And I hope everyone can hear me now. There, I've got my big face there. It's wonderful. Okay. So, I just thought I'd have this space. Bit of Turk talk. Everyone's got their thumbs up. Ali Snyder, did we have music? Someone's just put their thumbs up. I don't know. We did hear music. So you heard this. What a day this has been. What a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being in love. It makes me feel super powerful and rather excited with myself that we can have a bit of music and like things like this. I don't want to. I don't want to be that person that blows their own trumpet, but this is good, right? This is wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to let Stray come up. Stray, I'm going to just bear with, and then you can speak. Right, so I've got this space this afternoon because I haven't done a TERF talk for ages because, frankly, I've been feeling really, really unwell. But I've just noticed every now and again something happens, and there's a big fat kind of distraction character assassination of one of the women that hold the line. And it feels orchestrated. It feels like there's some other conversation going on somewhere where women, have to be picked off somewhat. And I don't like it very much. Now, it might just be a coincidence. It might be one of those things, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I do criticize people a lot, but I actually criticize the things they do about this issue, because this is my issue, right? I don't have anything else that I care about that much. I've not done activism before. I'm not like a seasoned activist that just charges into the next thing, so I make myself feel good. So it's a distraction from my own life. This genuinely moves me, and one of the reasons it really moves me is that I think it's we are being unmoored from reality. Our minds are being stolen, and everything that we know to be true and we can stand firmly upon is being taken from underneath our feet. And when people are in chaos, they have fear, and when people have fear, they are easy to manipulate and control. And it doesn't really matter how you feel about COVID, whether you think it genuinely was this just illness that just happened to come on our shores, and people were really, really unwell, and it was like a bit like a flu, but really, really bad and very contagious. And locking the whole country down was a good thing, or whether you think that it's some sort of Chinese-made excuse to do nanotechnology and to poison us all from the inside and turn us into robots. It doesn't really matter what you feel about the the whole thing about COVID. What we know is when something came upon our shores in our lives, that many of us allowed a government without too much evidence that we really understood. They allowed our government to keep us in our homes, prevent us from going to work, tanking our economy, and all the other things associated with what happened when we locked down. And again, I just want to make it really, really clear that my view on COVID and lockdowns and so on is nothing to do with my view on how frightened, petrified I am that actually we are all the same as the Germans in the 1930s, because all of our societies, given the right amount of fear and the right amount of manipulation, will actually are as easy to control as any other time in history or place in history where we point at that place and think, I would not be one of them. So that's just what I want to say. So I hope everyone can hear me properly. Stray, would you like to speak? Good afternoon. It's TERF Talk. You can say who you are. You don't have to. But what's your comment?
Yes, good afternoon, Kelly. It's 1 a.m. here in Australia. I'd just like you to really think about Dr. Collins every time you play that song, because it just breaks his heart.
I know. I love it. I just Brigadoon, the way he said Brigadoon. For a start, I didn't even know it was from Brigadoon. I just loved the song. But he's so angry, and good morning to you. But I tell you what I found really interesting for the summing up, and you'll have to forgive my memory because it was like 3-4 in the morning when I was listening to this stuff. But he basically said, look, the case isn't about sex-based rights. Like, they've just made it up. The pretext of this whole thing is not about sex-based rights. And then in his summing up, he just kept talking about the things I've said about sex-based rights. And he goes back to the party room where they talk about sex-based rights. So, I don't think these men know they do it because they're so angry and they're so right. But he did manage to just totally reveal all, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the common assessment that we have over here. And his closing wasn't really centered on the Nazi side of things so much. I think he gave up about that. He was
Roman means how
to support you and to protect you, even though the interview of that Sewell bloke and all the footage had been played in court, so the Judge Callahan definitely knows what's what, but he was still repeating the lie. And then, yeah, he was talking about the dignity and the humanity of the trans people every time that you say TERF. And yeah, he just wasn't making sense in the end.
No, and that beautifully leads me into talking about the fact that, he did say trans people, and often people say trans people, and there was a comment by a very well-known woman recently about how not to police other people's language and trans, and I just think in this instance, Dr. Collins was using trans people to mean a very vulnerable, silent minority, very, very troubled, vulnerable people. Um, when we know actually, I think he even talks about the hello boys, right? He says, hello boys, because I was talking to men. He slipped up, didn't he? But he said people assigned or people born male that then become women, or words to the effect of. And he said that me waving hello boys was provocative and also that eradicated their dignity and humanity, which I just think it's hilarious. And again, I don't know how far some Australians are, I don't know how many people are listening to this. I don't know whether it's being reported now that it's not so salacious, and actually the case is very much like Moira Deeming is completely right to bring the case, and sex-based rights are being talked about. I personally think it's incredibly significant, wonderful that it's on record, but I don't know whether your average Australian is just aware of it at all. And if they are, whether or not they hear the arguments as we hear them, or whether it's just like a silly fringe issue and nobody cares. Stray, what do you reckon?
I believe that a lot more people are waking up. It is being reported. It's still not being, a fully women's rights issue as opposed to trans rights issue. The judge himself, in a lot of his replies, has been like, okay, but what about the rights of the girls who want to get changed in change rooms without men, The judge has been questioning back a lot on that. So definitely the judge has been piqued. The public will hopefully, once he comes back with a decision on the 6th of December, I believe, hopefully the media will report on that properly. But yeah, it's still the movement over here and everything. It's still not where it could be. It's definitely not with the way it is over there with the mermaids announcements and stuff today. And I just saw the NHS have changed to a psychological process over there. It's not that way. We're still pushing puberty blockers over here, and we've just had the equality bill in New South Wales and everything. So it's still an uphill fight, but more people have peaked. And this court case is doing benefit for that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, we keep celebrating these things over here, and they're rarely what they seem. And so we're not as bad as you. I don't think we ever got as bad as you, and I'm entirely grateful to whatever it is about this country that held us away from that. Maybe it's the multiple fronts of fight back, or maybe it's just because we're a very old country, and therefore some things are very much instilled in us that is too difficult to pull out. But I've been really with that judge. So anybody else listening, the court case is Deeming versus Pasuto. Moira Deeming is suing John Pasuto, who's the leader of her political party, for expelling her from the party for attending the rally with us, and he's made up all reasons as to why, and they're all falling apart before our very eyes. But the judge clearly hasn't really gone anywhere near this issue at all from any side. So he just feels like a regular person who's being told some of this for the first time. And I think he's responding in, ironically, what they're going to rely on for the defamation case, which is how the reasonable man would view most of the things that have been said. And he seems to respond, obviously, if someone says the dignity of trans people to blah, 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 and then he's sort of saying, well, I don't understand why anyone would call someone who cares about children's safety an extremist. Like he seems delightfully a little bit removed from this. Maybe he's not on Twitter, maybe he doesn't read like The Age, maybe he's more of a reading The Australian or some other broadsheet, and it maybe he's on that side. I don't know. I mean, he said a couple of things that concerned me about January the 6th, but not really anything more than other regular people. So I am, I must say I am quite excited by the outcome. I really want to be in Australia, but I have had my visa refused twice now. But otherwise, I would love to be in Melbourne for that result. And then we'll do a Let Women Speak on the steps of Parliament or something, or just outside the court.
And have another champagne night. we just had Jordan anymore. Peterson. Did you hear we had Jordan Peterson knocked back as well?
It's to politicize immigration is outrageous. It's just outrageous. I mean, mine was on some weird. The first time they refused me, which is around this. So I've applied twice to come. The first time they refused me, they asked me for information, but didn't tell me what information it was that they required. So they just said, here's a form, or here's an attachment that will talk about the information we need. And then the attachment talked about what information they might ask for and how they want it, right? So they hadn't asked. And then the second time I paid like £300, or $400, something like that. And they refused it on the basis that I hadn't given them enough information and they didn't know enough about what I was doing, and it was too late anyway. Very odd. What was his? Did they have a reason, or did they just decline?
Just declined from what I could tell. But
Crazy.
even though it was Moira who brought the case that's been in court, it's pretty much Dr. Collins has pretty much been arguing about the damages. So I think he's given up, and he knows that the defamation was definitely there.
Yeah.
But as on top of that, Pinto's Smith, or whatever his name is, he stated in the stand that they had absolutely nothing on Angie. They could not find anything, any associations with Nazis. And when it came to you, they could not have anything concrete. And even the judge was like, so what you're saying about associating with Nazis and stuff is absolutely wrong. He watched that Garapay interview of yours.
I hadn't seen it since I did it, because I realised he was a vile piece of something once it finished, because then they all had a little chat whether or not I was too old to reproduce.
Well, they didn't play that part in court, but yeah, even the judge was like, but she pushed back. She pulled him up on it. She was not agreeing with him. So even the Nazi association that they tried to push with you, it's been ruled out. It's like the proof's been there. It's been shown in the court. There's nothing to it. So even though it's Moira that brought the case, you were also, quote unquote, on trial as well.
Well, I feel I was more on trial than Moira, to be honest. I feel like my whole character was on trial, and I also felt some, like the Nazi Barbie is because that's what some left-wing feminists called me, and so I thought that would be a funny kind of fuck you, by using that as a profile picture.
The judge said that too. He said that the Nazi Barbie as the profile picture was like taking the piss.
Yeah.
Which we know what taking the piss is over here.
Yeah.
And the judge was like, well, obviously that was that. So that's nothing as well.
Your master's at it. I used to think, looking at Clive James and Barry Humphries, it pains me to think that Australia has fallen so far away from such a rich kind of comedic past, and it's just mind-blowing. But I'm so glad that I know my videos have been shown in those courts. I didn't realize that the guy in Canada sounded like Pepe Le Pew. But what a funny sounding man. Which goes along with his character, I guess. But I'm glad they played so much in the court, and I do hope it's made some people look at the speeches, because the speeches that Australian women gave on those steps were nothing short of outstanding. And I played one of them yesterday, and I think it remains my favourite speech that's ever been at any one of the events I've done all over the world. She makes me, like, she moves me every time, because I just feel so honoured that Let Women Speak gave that woman space to do something so remarkable. And I think it will still, whoever came, I don't even think they gate crashed our rally. I don't think they were anywhere near our rally, but those silly men, those very camp men in black that came, I don't have one regret about the Melbourne event, because I think it might actually turn out to be a really good turning point in whether or not women are allowed to speak about their rights in public. So,
absolutely, it definitely pointed out in the case that they listened to the Nazis, they listened to the TRAs, but none of them listened to any of the speeches that you women gave.
No, and
And even the judge said, he was like, but Moira read the speech of a Muslim woman.
Yeah.
And Dr. Collins was like, so what? It's context.
So no, he was so rude, wasn't he? It was like, so what? So what?
So what?
He's so rude. But can I just say as well, just to be immodest, I'm so pleased that those women in Nottingham shouted, "Let women speak," because the beauty of hearing the "Let Women Speak" rally, and then time and time again, people being told that they don't want us to speak, I just think is a stroke of genius for me. I'm really delighted. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, and
No
I
worries.
guess it's good night.
That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. If you do get back over here, I'm sure Moira would enjoy catching up.
I'm sure she absolutely would. So would I too. I loved your country. Politics aside, it's the first place I've ever visited where I said to my husband I could move here tomorrow. I just loved it. So thank you so much. Michael A. Sherlock. This is TERF Talk. I don't even know what day it is. But you can say you either have to. What would you like to say?
Thank you. Only three short things, shortish things. Firstly, I'm very glad I've got this opportunity to thank you directly for the activism that you've done. I have a teenage daughter, and as a father who's very protective of his daughter, I think women's rights activists like yourself today are the Mary Wollstonecrafts of the past. And I just want to thank you for having the courage to have soup thrown in your face, to be abused, to be doxxed, to be hounded. And this also goes not just for yourself, obviously, but Moira as well. A lot of respect for Moira and women that are standing up for particularly young girls' rights, because young girls, like young boys, haven't figured out life yet. They're being told what's real, what's not. They're being told what they have to accept and what they should reject. And this is putting girls in a very vulnerable situation, particularly with sports and particularly with combat sports or contact sports especially. Okay, that was a bit longer than I intended, but I just want to say thank you. I do sincerely appreciate it. Second point is I did go to law school down here in Tassie as well, Tasmania, so another Australian. And you brought up the reasonable person's test or the reasonable man's test. It's still called in law. The problem with this test is it is heavily rooted in the zeitgeist of the current society. So what a reasonable person thinks, that there is a legal test for it and there are common law interpretations of that is case law to interpret it. But as society drifts more and more into the gender ideology, in a very short space of time, I predict, the reasonable person's test will be toxified by the gender ideology. So it will be a reasonable person knows a person can be born in the wrong body. A reasonable person knows that if a man declares himself to be a woman, that he should have access to female spaces. This is my worry about the evangelizing.
Trial, right? Sorry to interrupt. That's not on trial, though, is it? Is Moira a Nazi? Is she associated with Nazis? Did anyone say that she was a Nazi? I think you're right about the rest of it, that we can't rely on that test for any amount of reasonable or rational thought. But when it comes to, that statement, for example, the opposition statement that went out that sort of says neo-Nazis are terrible, aren't they? Horrific. Oh, I've told Moira, and they were sort of trying to say that those two statements were totally separate, which is just nuts, right? But anyway, I interrupted. You carry on.
No, that's fine. You're exactly right. I should have been more clear with that. My concern is in general with the reasonable person's test or the reasonable man test, that what's going to happen is it's going to drift to far left politics, and far left politics will be the measure by which we determine what a reasonable opinion is, and that's a worry. In terms of Moira's current case, you're 100% correct. And there's no the current reasonable person's test, is she a Nazi? Is she associated with Nazis? You would have to be an absolute moron, the opposite of a reasonable person, to think that Moira is associated with or condones Nazis when she specifically and publicly repudiated Nazis. She's obviously not. So I guess that's the second point. Third point was, in terms of the Australian government becoming a more authoritarian, particularly with our immigration, right? So I was due to speak. I'm good friends with Louise Elliott down here in Tasmania. I'm not sure. You know Louise. So
yes, I do.
she's been
and then got in so much trouble, right? She's in Tasmania. Yeah, that one. Yes.
Yeah, we're both in Hobart. So she's been absolutely hounded, surrounded. The local LGBTQIA, I don't have the time to go through the rest of it, mafia down here, which is sadly run by someone I've known since I was 15. So Rodney Croom is the head of Equality Tasmania. He's actually the godfather of my brother. He's a gay rights activist, was a very good gay rights activist in the early 80s, 70s and 90s. But he's one of those gay rights activists like Peter Tatchell who has swallowed the queer theory pill. And so he's now advocating for, child sterilization, child mutilation, protect trans kids is his favorite motto. He's labeling Women Speak Tasmania, which is a group I'm a member of down here. He's labeling them all far-right Nazis. Same thing with Moira that they're doing. And he's also colluding in the background, and there's emails now that Louise has come across and released where he's actually directly colluding with the local council here in Hobart to infringe upon Louise's human rights.
Wow.
So it is an absolute fucking mafia, and it is disgusting. And getting back to the point, with our immigration, I was due to speak at an event with Graham Lynham. He came down to Hobart, and the Australian government tried to block him. So he had trouble, and I was liaising with the Free Speech Union in Australia, Ruben, who's the coordinator, sort of. I was liaising with him, and he was like, no, look, we don't know if Graham's going to make it down here on time, if it's going to happen or not, because the government's trying to stop him getting in. So they've done this to Graham. They've done this to, Jordan Peterson. They're doing it to everyone who goes against this identitarian far left woke politics. So we are being swallowed up. But and I couldn't speak that night with him, unfortunately, because he did eventually get down here. But the day he came, unfortunately, my kids and I had the flu, so I couldn't get out of the house, unfortunately. So I was devastated because I really wanted to meet him and speak with him. So I guess those 3 points are the only ones I wanted to make. So it was a bit waffly.
Well, it's fine by me. You waffle away. I think Donald Trump calls it weaving, so maybe you could just say that.
Okay, I'll use that.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting, and I don't want to talk too much about immigration because it's not my area of expertise. But when I went to the United States of America, and I think there is a growing concern on both left and right politics in America about everyone crossing over the border. I mean, I had to show my hotel. I had to show my return flight. I had to say exactly why I was there. I was asked like 5 or 6 questions. You have to queue for about 3 hours to get in the United States of America. It's one of the worst borders I've ever come across. And apparently that's because the unions have retained the border. And so I don't know why it is. It's something to do with port authorities and unions. But anyway, it's bad. And it's just really interesting that we have a lot of blocks on legal coming and going. So I'm going to come to Australia, hopefully. I'd stay about a week because otherwise I think it kills you. And then I fly home. That's really difficult to do. But just to rock up to your country or rock up to my country on a boat and then claim asylum, that's quite easy to do. And I think it's on purpose. So I really do think it's politically motivated to create something else. And And I'm not saying that if you're an asylum, I'm not making a comment on whether those asylum seekers are genuine or should be here, shouldn't be here, or whatever. I'm just saying for the normal person, there's a real disconnect between like this apparent almost open border stuff that we have going on and how difficult it is for people to come and go who've got different ideas to the government. But your government really locked down very hard, didn't it? Your government was completely authoritarian. I know it wasn't over in Perth.
Yeah, and very selectively. So it's very obvious. So the lines upon which they're rejecting people are very clear. They're all ideological, and they're all ideological in one direction.
Yeah.
We just recently, we didn't even vet. We just let thousands of Palestinians in. And look, again, same as you, I'm not trying to say we shouldn't help people who need helping. I'm not, making comments in that respect. But what I'm saying is we know that a high percentage of Palestinians support Hamas, and yet we're not screening adequately. Yet it takes you. You obviously don't pose a threat, terrorist-wise. Graham doesn't either. Jordan Peterson doesn't either. The three of you are purely intellectual characters, and that is you're just presenting intellectual arguments, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the people we are letting in, there is a genuine, and I feel horrible to say this, but it's true. There is a genuine risk of fanaticism and terrorism with some of the people we are letting in, but we're just completely easy on that. So it's so strange.
Well, I guess it depends on who they benefit, because there's obviously some money, some power, some vote secured by certain policies. Some, I don't know whether I believe the idea about population growth and the fact that we aren't having as many babies and these people have more babies or whatever it is. There's something going on. And I think by the time most people realize that something's going on, it's going to be far too late. So happy days. I must say, over the last few years, it's the first time I've ever really thought about what sort of world I've brought my children into. And I think probably up until the last couple of years, because I think this woke stuff will come and go, but I think there are other threats that seem to be united with this woke stuff. But anyway, I digress. Thank you so much for your comments, Michael. It must be very late.
No problem. You can drop me down as a listener now. They're the only things I want to say. So
okay, thank you.
Someone else can come up.
That's very kind. Sarah. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Kellie-Jay.
Hi.
So nice to be able to talk to you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all your commitment. I'm 200% with you, no compromise.
Thank you.
And I am now having such problem that I can't hold my tongue, even at work, even at any place. It's just I can't hold it together, even though it might cost me my job.
So is it just getting more and more and more and so much that it's unbearable, or is there a particular thing that's happened recently?
No, I don't know if I mentioned I'm calling from Portugal. So we are in Bom dia. We are not at the state of some other countries like UK or even in the Western Europe. However, I see already companies that give pride lanyards to employees. We are in my company. We will switch to another building, and I heard. The proposition: are we going to have mixed sex toilets? And I spoke up. Why should we? And one of my colleagues comments, what happens if we now get one of these non-binary or trans people? And I replied, what is being trans? What is it? And really, I cannot stress enough how amazed I am that people that have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree in finance and mathematics cannot understand that people cannot change sex.
It's so mad. It's so mad, isn't it?
Mad.
But you're a conservative country, right? So what I think of Portugal is that you're quite religious. and you're very conservative. Now, obviously, you're not going to be as religious as you were 20 years ago, but I thought you were quite a Catholic country and small c conservatives. How is it happening in Portugal?
Well, we haven't been really religious for many decades now.
Okay.
It's not comparable to Irish people.
Okay.
I would make a comparison. It's not comparable, although we are relatively mostly conservative. But since the 70s, the left took over everything.
Okay.
So I say the 70s because the old conservative regime came down, and we were almost replaced by a communist dictatorship, as if it would be any better than the previous state of things. Anyways, that didn't happen, fortunately. However, the left has had over the decades very impact on the school guidance, TV. Well, I think it's almost the same as any other country, but we are not that much religious. And we are mostly conservative, but not that much.
Right.
However, so what I'm saying is I cannot find, we are not even down the drain as some other countries are. And the only person I could find that I really can talk to these subjects about is one that I found via your forum.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Yes, I was almost like, I don't know if I was going to pull my hair out. And in many respects, she is my best friend.
Oh.
Because we talk almost every day, and this is not coming for me. I'm not susceptible to this bullshit, but it's just I can't hold it together. I don't know. I don't know if it's you, but I think and I had like a 30-minute talk this week with my colleagues after they asked what happens when we get a non-binary or whatever, and we had a talk. It went very smoothly, and in the end, I can tell you that I was shaken because they said, "Yeah, we should really have this talk with our supervisor because I think she feels the complete opposite way."
It's
and at that moment, I felt I have to be honest. I felt panicky.
Did you get the sort of adrenaline rush of thinking I'm about to say something now, and I'm gonna throw conflict into an otherwise quite peaceful situation? Like everyone going along with something, even a bad idea, it's a peaceful situation. You might all be marching into, I don't know, a bowl full of treacle, but it's like there's a comfort and a peace and harmony in going along with the herd. But when you are the one to break the spell, and I do think it is like breaking the spell, and you speak up, I promise you won't be the only person that is relieved that you've spoken. But I know it can be really, really difficult, especially if I mean, I love conflict, I'm not going to lie. But if you're used to kind of just getting on with your work colleagues and the next minute you're the bigot who doesn't think that women have penises, I know it's really, I can imagine it's very, very difficult.
Yes. I mean, I didn't even think because when this subject comes up, it's automatic. It's like I can't hold it in, even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that is mostly what I'm afraid of. Because for now, our sort of DEI guidance focused mainly on people with disabilities, which my company employs. They haven't came up with the rainbow flags yet, but I know it's coming. And what happens then if I speak up? You know, that's the main point. But I can't hold it anymore. And this week, apart from that conversation at work, outside work, I don't care. I'm not afraid of having a different opinion. I don't really care. And I am very peaceful at making my statements, but I am zero compromise. No compromise.
I'm just wondering if it's not caught in Portugal yet, right? And it hasn't, because I went to a concert quite recently in Lisbon. I went to watch Air. It was amazing. I didn't see a single young person with a rainbow flag or bag. I didn't see anything. There was nothing on any branding or anywhere. Do you think maybe if you got cross enough, you could be the woman that stops it before it starts? Like, could it not be you that maybe starts the Portuguese arm of Party of Women, and then you're the one, before this takes hold of the schools and everywhere, that you're already talking about it?
Kellie-Jay.
It has.
It has, because what I'm not making myself clear or not. It's not visible, but gender ideology is in schools.
Yeah.
And the center-right government this week say they are going to review the citizenship class programs, which will be your PSHE, I guess, because it has gender ideology. But it's starting from the schools. And this week, I look at a form that we should fill to renew our transport card that we use every day, monthly top up. This says that gender, FM, other.
Oh,
so it's
Jedi
not so visible.
Yeah.
You coming here as a tourist for a few days, you don't realize it. And I'm here. I know it's in schools. It's in Parliament. There have been Parliament propositions that what we call social transition is in schools might be concealed from parents. This has been proposed in Parliament.
Well, this is how it happened here. This is how it happened here.
Yes.
Before anybody knew what was going on. I was talking to someone this morning. 9 years ago, I met a woman who was a community nurse. Excuse me 1 moment. So sorry. I met a woman who was a community nurse who was rewriting trans inclusive guidance for community nursing. And community nursing over here is sort of nurses that visit people in their own homes is a lot of the community nursing. It's sort of outreach. And also the lunchtime staff, like the assistant staff at the school, were no longer allowed to say good boy and good girl. So it's like you say, I mean, it's happened everywhere, that it's the hidden, what does it matter changes, the incidental things that actually end up being a really, really useful foundation for this crap to take hold.
Yep.
And Kara Dansky talks about this in the United States, that actually what they've done, and I'm sure it will be the same in Portuguese law if you look, and it's the same here, they build up, what they do is in insignificant bits of legislation and law, they insert the language of this cult. So it might say the word gender instead of sex. So I don't know what the equivalent would be in Portugal.
Yes.
Or they might put a neutral term as opposed to woman or man in different bits of law and legislation. And then what you do is you build a critical mass of legislation where actually the word woman doesn't really exist anymore in law, or the word sex doesn't exist anymore in law. And that's exactly how it's happened everywhere. And maybe you're a bit late to it, but maybe that gives you a little bit more of a fighting chance, because that's why we did it here. That's why we've succeeded here. It's because many groups were really focused on this from 2016 onwards, and some as far back as like the 1970s. But certainly mainstream, not necessarily super feminist organizations, but quite mainstream organizations have been working on this since 2016.
Well, I thank you for your optimism. However, from all the conversation I have had, from all the power I know the extreme left has in Portugal, and when I say far left, I mean far left.
Yeah.
And from all the conversations I have, I'm telling you, going to have to get so much worse for people to wake up.
I've been
because they feel it's compassionate.
Yeah.
Well, they feel it's compassionate, and they always, when I try to start the conversation, they always talk about the gay, and what I reply is, what is self-destructive on being gay? Nothing. What is self-destructive on being trans? Whatever that is, everything. And they just don't get it. They don't get it. They don't. It's just like I feel like I'm losing my mind. And every time I have the opportunity to watch one of your videos, one of your lives, I feel like a piece of myself is put back together, and I don't feel so insane.
Oh, that's such a nice thing to say. And
it's
and
just the truth. I'm not even that flattering to people. I usually have a very high standard for myself and for other people. So I'm not really, the flattering type is not my type. And maybe that's why I like you so much, because I know you are the same.
I am the same.
So, yes. So it's like, and can I make a special request since I'm here? I so want the necklace, the silver necklace.
We're getting them back for Christmas.
Yes, I so want it because I have a formal job. It's finance industry. So there's a level of some kind of type of clothing that I'm expected to wear, although I have taken the cancel t-shirt.
Good.
I love that one. Yes.
Well, we're bringing back the necklaces for Christmas. So I think we've got silver and gold, and we've got mother and woman.
Oh.
We've also got the Venus thing coming. So they're all coming. Because I just think every woman deserves the. If you can't speak, then at least you can have a bit of a rebellious thing around your neck. But it's really lovely to talk to you, Sarah. And I'd love to come to Portugal. Go on.
Can I just tell you in 30 seconds, because I don't want to take much more space, if you think from your observation of Portugal that you think the gender ideology didn't pick up, can I tell you that in less than 1 hour, all my stickers were gone?
Wow.
That's all I have to say to close it and give space for some other person to share with you.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that says it all. But thank you so much. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank
you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. QK. Welcome to TERF Talk. You can say you don't have to. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kellie-Jay. Hiya. My name's Kay. I want to share something that happened about a month ago.
Yes.
And it was so distressing. And I've only just come on this, and I'll have to go off soon because I'm going for a massage.
Lovely. Well done.
But I'll catch up later and watch it on YouTube as well. But what happened was, as you know, I am looking after my elderly mother who's terminally ill, and doing quite a good job of it, I must say. But it's quite full on. And about a month ago, they sent a senior nurse, to do an assessment on her. And by all accounts, I was expecting a woman. It wasn't a woman, turned out to be a man.
God.
Calling himself a woman's name. I've got the text, looked it up afterwards on various things, including Facebook, and which I don't do, but I did a bit of research, and it turns out this person is training other nurses in this as a trans inclusion training in the NHS.
Oh, of course, yeah. Let's spend some money.
And I'm having a few palpitations now just recalling it all. I was so upset, but the lady who has had that 10-year relationship with her consultant.
Yes.
It made me think of that as well, because I felt powerless. If it'd been me, I'd have said out. But because it was my mother, I did stop him doing some things that I didn't think were appropriate. I said, no, you won't be doing that. I said, the last time somebody did, a man tried to do that, she didn't like it. It was out of my mouth before I knew what I'd said. But that's okay. Anyway, cut a long story short, he went and when my mother realised that had been a man, she cried.
That's just horrific, Kay.
She cried and she said, I don't like all this man-woman thing, because she knows what's going on. She understands. She's very compass mentis. She's a very clever woman. She's done some amazing stuff in her life. But it really upset me. But at the time, I had to respond or react in an opposite way to what I felt like. I wanted to, whatever. I was so angry, peeved, the word is, angry and upset at the same time. I was so angry and I wanted to react in a certain way. But in order to not do that, I had to react in the opposite way and be polite and friendly. Do you know what I mean? Just to protect my mum. As I say, if it was me, it would have been a different situation, different scenario.
I just wonder in that situation, I'm so sorry that's happened to your mum and to you, because you're right. If it's you, I mean, if it's one of my kids, I probably would kill them.
Yes.
But when it's your vulnerable mum who really needs, clearly he's there because somebody was coming to assess because there's a need, because nobody's coming out for anything that's absolutely necessary. And so then you jeopardize all of that. And then your mum's traumatized. Did you complain, Kay?
I haven't done yet. I'm going to wait because I don't know that she'll be with us too much longer, although sometimes I say she's probably going to outlive the lot of us. So I'm just biding my time with this whole thing. But I have just had a conversation with social services, not about that, but they keep harassing. They were almost like harassing us in the end and sending all these people who don't know what they're doing and blah, blah, blah. And I've just said, look, let's just finish this now because we don't need you anymore, because they keep putting us into urgent care and crisis and things like this on and off the last couple of years. But anyway, so I've just finished the relationship with social services quite amicably, and so I'm quite happy about that. But I will deal with it in the future. But I did go to that vigil yesterday as well. That was very important, and I do what I can. And the talk at the Free Speech Brighton and all that business, which we can send you at some point if you want. But yeah, I will definitely be dealing with it, but that will have to be just put on the back burner for the moment because there's too much going on, and my priority obviously is to just make my mum as comfortable as possible.
I'm not going to lie.
So anyway,
I feel like I could cry hearing that. It's so upsetting.
It's wicked, Kelly. It's wicked.
I mean, it's like he might be just a vile. I just don't think anything nice of these men that want to come and invade women, erode women's boundaries, and be in places when they know they shouldn't be. And if they don't know that elderly women are not going to, and vulnerable women are not going to want them around and clock them as men, then they are sociopaths and they shouldn't be around anyone with any capacity whatsoever. And if they do know, then maybe they're psychopaths. But either way, there are numerous people who knew that they would be putting that man in a position where he would be faced with potentially a lone woman. I mean, thank goodness you were there.
Exactly, absolutely. I won't let any of them see her without me being present.
It's just it, and Kay,
but there's an awful lot of vulnerable.
Yeah, go on.
A lot of vulnerable elderly women and men, probably, that don't have anyone to advocate for them. I mean, the GP did say you're a very good advocate for your mother, and the social services head of I've just spoken to, this department, I wasn't very happy with. They've just said, good on you, sort of thing. So I'm doing the best, but there's a lot of vulnerable elderly people who don't have anyone to advocate, who are on their own. Apart from being lonely, they're very vulnerable because they're on their own. And, it's just plain wrong, isn't it? It's just, I think it's evil. I really do think it's evil. I didn't used to believe in evil, but I do now.
I definitely do. I really, really do. I think it's gaslighting as well, because let's say that you hadn't been there and there was a vulnerable woman on her own, and then she phones up and she says, you sent a man, and they're like, no, we sent Janet round. No,
exactly.
He's definitely a man. No, we sent Janet. Oh, he was too rough with me. Well, we sent Janet. It is disgusting, and I think you're absolutely right. I think I think a lot of things are evil these days that I didn't used to, and I'm a gold star atheist. But someone said many people find a path to religion through the belief in the devil. So,
well, the first carer then came the next day, And it was definitely a woman. And I said, "Are you a biological woman?"
Well, I said
She
I went for
looked a bit strange and said yes. And then I said, "I just want to make it clear, we don't want any men." And they still sent a man one day. I said goodbye. I didn't even let him in.
Well, I went for surgery, and I didn't know, but when you go under a general anaesthetic, there has to be a female in the room. Why is that? Oh, because men are so great when women are unconscious. Apparently, they can't even be trusted when they're operating on us, not to interfere with us. So there's always a woman in the room, which I think should inform all men that, for fuck's sake, what are you doing? But anyway, I said, when they said that, I said, will it definitely be a woman? And they looked at me like I was speaking Japanese. And I said, well, I'm just asking, is it definitely a female? Now, they said yes, it's policy, but at no point did they say yes, of course, none of them would have penises. So we still don't know. I mean, all the noise comes out where people go, oh, there's this wonderful thing that's happened. I don't trust a damn thing. I think everything is political spin. We know that the Tavistock shut, right? And then they've just opened up mini Tavistocks all over the country. So I don't believe any of this shit. But well, much love to you and your mum, and thank goodness she's got
Thank you for letting me share that, because I think it was good that I shared that. I feel better now. And I hope you get the GP. If not, just go to a private one.
I will do that, but thanks so much.
But take care of yourself and sort that chest out.
I know, it's terrible. Thanks.
Chest infection, I mean.
Right.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye.
Right, bye. We have Alexandra next. Good afternoon. This is TERF Talk. You can say you are, you don't have to. What would you like to say?
Oh, hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, I was just listening to QK, sorry. I'm taking heavy painkillers. I've just had a knee replacement.
Oh,
that's all right. It's going well. But yeah, it just struck me because it was quite funny. You saying, about trans people in the NHS, because I was because I will have none of it, absolutely none of it. These are blokes, and that is that. And we need to call them out for what they are. They are blokes in women's dresses, and that's that. Anyway, I was standing outside having a sneaky cigarette with the nurse's permission, I might add, and everybody that was walking past me, all the staff were just smiling and saying, "You're not supposed to smoke," but they do. Anyway, this thing came from the distance, and bearing in mind I was under sort of painkillers, it was about 6'4" tall, and I kind of looked, and then I saw a skirt, and then I kind of saw, well, this apparition just walking like a rugby player towards me. And he was the only one that turned around and said, "You know, you're not supposed to be smoking here, don't you?" And he stood there. And I was just like, "Oh, really?" And I just took my cigarette and I blew smoke in his face. I thought, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I think that they're disgusting. They really are. It's just out of all of the people that kind of like would have walked past me and sort of smiled, said hello. It was that one that kind of, a bloke in a skirt came past and had to say something. I just think they're disgusting. They really are disgusting. And I don't think they should be anywhere near NHS, anywhere near vulnerable people at all, because, they are. They're blokes in clothes. I mean, it's just disgraceful the way the world's going. But what I was going to say was just, like me, if you can see that it is a guy in a dress, you address him as a him.
Yes.
Don't kind of like what's the word? Kowtow to their, they want to be a woman so much. You call him a him, a bloke, and that's that, and put them back in their place. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you so much. Well said, and I hope you recover very quickly from your knee surgery. Nice to talk to you. Okay, there's no one else I can't even speak, asking to speak. And Janet did ask about my phone lines, and it just got a bit weird on the phones, and they kept not working. So that's why we switched to Spaces. Plus, the traffic's easier, and people tend to join a lot better. And I've done it at a really tricky end of the week time. So, yes. But But I just want to say, while everyone's here, I just want to give a bit of a shout out to my very good friend Julia Long, who is an unapologetic lesbian separatist, and has enjoyed a really, really happy life away from men. And her and I are poles apart on this, because I'm so heterosexual, as I said earlier, it would make your eyes water. I really am super, super straight. But I am totally honored to know somebody so well informed, who's been working in the women's sector for such a long time and made a thoroughly impressive impact. And I am more than happy that Julia talks about an alternative for women, not in a sort of a dreamlike way, but in a, there's genuinely an alternative to spending your life in a unhappy heterosexual marriage, or in a heterosexual partnership, or waiting for that special man or whatever. And she doesn't just mean being a lesbian. She also means maybe living alone, or living in sort of communal spaces with women or whatever. And I'm just grateful that she speaks like that, because I think all options are absolutely essential for young women to understand that they have a mass amount of options that don't include accepting something very, very under par from men. And so I just wanted to say that I saw the pile-on. I genuinely think it's a very unforgiving, no, what is it when you a willful misinterpretation of what she said. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I don't think at all. The last woman, I think, who has spent hours and hours and days and weeks of her life reading what men have done to women, the violence that men have committed against women, the fatal violence that men have committed against women. When she reads through what's happened to women, I think of all the things I would ever accuse Julia of, victim blaming would not be one of them. And maybe if that was your interpretation, maybe you need to come out of your WhatsApp chat groups that give you permission to make such uncharitable interpretations of what was a really basic tweet. And I genuinely think if that's how you interpreted it, maybe you should get some very bad actors out of your ears. So I wanted to finish on that, because through the times when I have been roundly attacked and criticized by all sides, Julia Long has always been an amazing constant. I know she doesn't agree with many of the things I ever say. And yet she is a woman. She's just women-centered, women first. She's very, very funny. She's incredibly articulate. And if I would want any woman on my side, it would be her over almost anybody else. So that's what I just want to say. And Julia has like less than 6,000 followers on Twitter, much to the disgrace of most of you. But she doesn't have that many followers. And I think when very large accounts go in, because, and I'm just going to say it, I wasn't going to get into it. I'm just going to say it. If you read her tweet, which was about, there is an alternative to heterosexual relationships. And it's really important that we know that, and you can live a happy life without it, more or less, is what she said. If you read that and you have a negative emotional response to it, and it was quote tweeting or sharing the story of that incredibly brave woman whose husband was a piece of shit in France, and if you have a negative response to that, right, that's on you. And then what happens when you have a negative response, and most of our negative responses are generated through fear or shame. When you have that negative response generated by fear or shame, you need to give it a label and you need to let yourself off, right? So you can't wear that. You can't then evaluate your response and yourself. And so what you might do is someone might give you a bit of a get out of jail free card and say, oh, that was victim blaming. And so then what you can do is you can attack that woman with something that she didn't mean, with something that you'd have to be uncharitable to think she meant. And then that's what you do. Ladies, I'm a happy heterosexual woman. Women waxing lyrical all day and all night about, even if she had said this, about how amazing being a lesbian was. If she said, oh, you're all so ridiculous, all you crazy women going out with men are ridiculous, come and be a lesbian. I don't take anything from that because I'm not threatened by that at all. I don't feel ashamed of that. There's nothing I fear about that. I just think it's not for me, but I'm really glad she says it. So that's what I just want to say. And look, if you don't know anything about Julia Long, then you don't know anything about Julia Long. And then maybe if somebody gives you permission to pretend that you think it was victim blaming, maybe that's what you do. But she's a wonderful friend, and she's been a brilliant advocate for women. And unlike women that she used to work in Naya, and unlike Karen St. Angala of Smith, or Julie Bindel, for example, she said that Paris Lees could be a lesbian. It was possible for men to be lesbians. Karen Angala Smith wanted to include men on the femicide census. So, pardon me if I take the integrity of Julia Long more seriously than I take the integrity of anyone else. So, it was a great lesson for everybody to look at in the Do It to Julia. How aptly named was that? So anyway, if you can stand up for what is right, even when those around you may want to misinterpret and try and make you look unkind, then I promise we will win. If you have just an ounce of the integrity that Dr. Julia Long has, and you hold the fucking line, then I promise we will win. Just something for Dr. Mr. He, Him Collins. One moment.
What a day this has been. What a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being in love.
Can I just say, somebody in the chat and on YouTube just said, so tired of political lesbianism. Well, don't do it then. That's just don't do it. That's what I'm going to say. And finally, do you know why else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose.
Maybe the sun gave me the power, for I could swim Loch Lomond and be home in half an hour. Maybe the air gave me the drive, for I'm all aglow and alive. What a day this has been. What a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being in love. There's a smile on my face.